Benevolent discipline. Did you create that term, and what does it mean?
Yes. Well, I think benevolent disciplinarian has to do with a sense of justice. Now, many times when I talk about tough love, people want to focus on the toughness and they think it's meanness, but the focus needs to be on love. Uh, Discipline should be based on justice. If a person did something, what can you do based on justice to change their behavior, not focus on how hard you can punish the person. Ultimately, what you want to take place, you want children to stay in school, and you want them to change their behavior.
You know, one of the things that occurs to me is students are always challenging teachers with that issue of fairness, which is really a call for, you know, if you implement a particular reinforcement for this child or offer this one an extra something because of a project well done, the kids will say, me too, me too. Now, why didn't you do that for me? It seems that that's a call for justice. That's a call for fairness. And even the worst behaved problems kids in the classroom want that fairness, want that justice.
I think it's consistent. Every place I've worked in my life, there are rules on the book, but the rules are not enforced. Or you have one set of rules for one set of students, and you have another set of rules for another set of students. The more predictable the environment is, the more relaxed everybody is. Everybody needs to know exactly what's going to happen.
A consistency.
Very consistent and very persistent.
You know, it's intriguing to me also. Not only is consistency the key to discipline, I've seen teachers with vastly different disciplinary styles. I was kind of a butt-in chair teacher. You know, I was going to every kid, they were going to have two cheeks in the chair when the bell rang. That meant they were in my room. Other teachers across the way, very laid back. As long as they had any kind of body part dangling in the room, they were there and they didn't get the detention or didn't get sent. And in considering my own teaching versus another teaching style, both can work as long as the teachers are consistent.
Well, yeah, I mean, people are different, but I think the thing for young people is if you put my butt in the chair for throwing a spitball, I want everybody's butt in the chair.
The fairness
spitball. The fairness is the issue.
Tell me, I heard you say you had teachers greeting students, serving as hall monitors. It occurs to me there might be all kinds of union issues and problems. I mean, those are policing functions. How did you elicit your teachers' participation in that? How?
You change the language, like guidance counselors had a rebellion about lunch duty. I'm not talking about lunch duty. I'm talking about proactive guidance.
And caring for kids.
And talking to children. If you look at guidance, you will see probably about 25% of students in a school will go to the guidance office if they have to change a grade or something. Beyond that, they don't go. About 100% of the students go into the cafeteria. So while you're in the cafeteria, to talk to young people and develop a relationship. You talk about tough love, you talk about discipline, you talk about guidance, you talk about teaching. The thing that we're really talking about, that's the core foundation, is developing a relationship. A relationship is why young people will follow rules. A relationship is how you motivate young people. Spending time on task and time with young children. The thing that I talked about a little bit was we walk young children or students to the bus every day. Every single day. Days when we don't walk them to the bus, they wonder what's wrong. On the outside, you may say that's treating them like little children, but it gives you an opportunity when you're not in a rigid environment in the classroom to have some downtime and talk.
It's non-academic content, non-academic content.
It's not threatening.
It's interesting. I'm in the process personally of developing a book. The title of it is Relational Discipline. It's interesting that you mentioned that term. As I look at disciplinary approaches, Lee Cantor's assertive discipline or cooperative discipline by Dr. Linda Albert, a number of good strategies, a number of good ideas, and many of those strategies and tactics work. Rick Kerwin, who was with us on our last workshop, did Discipline with Dignity, which is a profoundly influential disciplinary program. But I don't see an a priori focus on that relationship, the relationship between a pupil and a teacher, and the caring and the kinds of support that can grow there. Are we moving back toward that now in our nation's effort to look at how we discipline kids?
We have to. It can't be about punishment. And a lot of times when you talk about discipline, people think you're talking about this person is going to punish people. When I became principal of Scotland High School, the discipline referrals went down about 50%. The violence went down 90%. When I became principal of Junior High School 265 in New York City, the discipline and suspensions went down. At Southern High School, for long-term suspensions in Durham, we had less than any high school in Durham County. The key is relationship building. A lot of what James Comer talks about, building relationships, focusing on the total child. Now, one thing that I do, I have speaking engagements and workshops in churches. I go to community-based organizations. I go to football games. I speak at elementary schools, middle schools, other high schools, the universities.
So you try to get the community involved in the school.
Yeah, I think so. I think the job of the principal, you know, when we say people won't come to PTA meetings, well, why not take the meetings to the people? I think the day of the principal staying in the office and waiting for the mountain to come to Muhammad is just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen in today's world.
Muhammad has to go to the mountain.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's intriguing to me because I see more and more principals reaching out to the community. That was the thrust of the mentoring segment that we did a little previously. And again, the building of those relationships can begin in the community setting rather than wait until a problem arises. I have to ask you a couple of other questions, given that we're focusing on a combination of discipline, character, ed. When you went into that inner city New York school, how much time and funds, what did you invest in school security equipment? I mean, I have been somewhat, I guess disappointed is a correct term, in that tends to be what many schools focus on first. Is what kind of security cameras, what kind of metal detectors, what kind of, you know, what windows and locks on the doors. And I think that's a dead end, if that's all we do.
Well, at junior high school, 265 was the 5th most violent school in New York City.
There's a good rationale there for
the additional money that I spent for security was $0.
Really?
The additional staff members I hired was $0. First of all, I didn't have the money.
Yeah, well, that's a real school budget kind of issue.
We didn't have metal detectors. I met with students the first day they came. In about 5 minutes, I got a standing ovation. And I think I underestimated how starved they were for leadership. And I talked about rules, and, you know, I was, you know, very intense. And talked about things they had to do, and they had to tuck their shirts in and tie their shoes and walk to the right. I even implemented silent passing if I got upset. And they did it. I mean,
tell me what silent passing
it means. You can't say anything in the hallway. Not quietly talking. I mean, say nothing. And it worked. But I think it has to do with caring, it has to do with trust, and it has to do with relationships. We cannot buy ourselves out of this problem, and we will not metal detect and video camera ourselves out of this problem. But we can do it by loving people and by letting young children know we care about them and we love them.
In that city, did you have the thing? I've never taught in New York City. My teaching was in North Carolina many years ago. Did you have a gang problem? How did gang members respond? Do they differentially respond to these kinds of things from the other general student population?
There's a major gang problem, and the gang problem is a sleeper in the Southeast. When I became principal of Southern High School in Durham, my first meeting was with gang members. I meet with gang members on a regular basis. It's my school, it's my territory. Now, one thing gang members understand is territory.
Yes.
It is my school and it's my territory. Now, they may own the streets. They cannot own the school, and that's not negotiable. I met with drug dealers, and I knew who they were. That's not negotiable. I know who sells guns. That's not negotiable. I know who's violent. That's not negotiable. But I'll meet with them, and I'm pretty civil. But it has to be clear who's in charge of building.
Are you able to establish rapport in that kind of situation? I mean, is there a respect that you earn by meeting with them and kind of confronting that situation openly?
I think it's a colossal mistake to ignore them. It's a major mistake to pretend they don't exist. And it's a mistake not to meet with them. They need to understand the boundaries. I think everybody wants to be safe. I had an interesting conversation with a gang member about 4 weeks ago. He had transferred from another school. And he said, the word in the streets is, come to Southern High School if you're a gang member. And I said, why? He said, because we don't have to fight here.
He was glad to be relieved of that.
Which means he gave his problem to me, you know, like I'm happy. But at your school, we know you're going to have metal detectors unannounced. We know you're going to do security searches. We know you're going to put the book bags in the locker. So we know if anybody ever does something, they're going to have to use their fists, but we're not going to get hurt.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned Southern High School, and that has been a turnaround kind of story that I believe we saw. You saw some of the newspaper clippings. Can you tell us what indications of turnaround you had there after a year? You mentioned several a while ago, such as attendance. What were some of the other indicators?
Well, the first thing when you walk in the building, nobody's in the hallways. When the bell rang, it's a lot of staff members in the hallway, a lot of people in the cafeteria. We do have some rules and regulations. One, you must sit in the cafeteria to eat lunch. You must walk to the right. Guidance counselors are encouraged, highly encouraged to greet students. Teachers stand at the door. But there are some things that you use to measure a school. Test scores went up dramatically in 10 out of 11 categories in 1 year. The dropout rate went down. The attendance rate went up. So those are things that people normally use. And then we have a customer satisfaction survey. Do you feel safe in the school? Do you feel like the principal is an instructional leader?
And that was a survey for?
That's a survey that
teachers fill it out, students fill it out?
Teachers, students, and parents, and it's anonymous.
Oh.
So the number of students who felt safe was 96%. The principal is an instructional leader, 92%. So those were, very high numbers. What I'm also noticing is students from private schools and religious schools are coming back. Enrollment went up 250 more than what we anticipated. And many of those people came from charter schools, private schools, and religious schools.
When you went into that community, did you reach out to the community there? Were you speaking to one of the themes I've seen in the school violence literature is that schools must reach out to embrace our faith communities, be they Protestant, Catholic, Islamic, Jewish. In other words, we need to mobilize the faith communities on this issue of improving our schools. Were you able to do that?
You're absolutely right. When I came to North Carolina in '96, I went to Scotland High School in Laurinburg, North Carolina. I had 72 speaking engagements the first year. I had some Sundays when I spoke in 3 churches on a Sunday and met with businesses and community-based organizations. But we must reach out and continue to reach out.
We're going to get back with Henry in just a few moments, and I'd like to thank you for sharing your insights and your thoughts on this. Again, please